Hi all, well this is a quick look at one of my bikes. It's my best bike and by far my most expensive bike. It's a ground up, custom built, aftermarket framed Harley in quotes, even though it's got no Harley parts on it whatsoever. It was built 2002, 2003 by a shop called Big Twin Services in Southport, England, who did a great job. Main parts of the bike are the frame, which is a drop seat Softail frame from Germany, and the engine. The engine's probably the main part for the bike. It makes the bike, and it's a Merch Performance 131 cubic inch, that's 2150cc engine, Evo, built for me by the factory in Canada at the time. It was probably the Rolls Royce of aftermarket engines. These days they're slightly bigger engines, probably slightly more powerful, but back then in about 2000, 2001 it was well, pretty much the top end aftermarket Evo engine. That particular one is called a HO model, HO standing for high output, which means it has high compression, 10.5 to 1, compared to standard Evo's 8.5 to 1. To start it, you've got to push in 2 compression buttons next to the spark plugs to help it turn over. If you don't, even with a big powerful battery and a big starter motor, it struggles to turn over the engine. In fact, when it arrived, the engine wouldn't fit in the frame. It was so tall, so the frame had to have its top tube raised. And the wheels are German too. They're from Rix. Originally, it had 16-inch wheels with big fat tyres, back and front, but it handled like a bag of spuds. So I changed them soon after to the 17-inch sports bike size wheels, which make the bike handle a lot better, but unfortunately they also limit the ground clearance even more. It didn't have a lot of ground clearance to start with, but with the lower profile tyres I lost a little bit more ground clearance. So one job for the future is maybe to do something with the swing arm mount to get myself some more ground clearance. So moving on, the primary is, as you can see, a belt drive, 4-inch belt drive, again German, from a company called NH Power, with an external bearing supports there. It had a lot of problems, maybe because the engines are powerful, I'm not sure, but various things broke when I tried to use it. I've broken a couple of starter pinions, and the front pulley mounts had problems, which have now been re-engineered, and for a few years now it's been okay, but you're all sort of thinking one day it's going to go again, but hey ho. As you see, it's got twin coils, so it's single fire ignition, which actually doesn't make the bike go much quicker. I guess it makes your spark plugs last twice as long, and it makes it a little bit smoother at idle, or just off idle, but other than that I wouldn't bother with it unless you were starting from scratch like I was. And now moving on to the front end, yokes are billet of course, and the forks are 43mm Serianis, very stiff, but they work quite well. Caliper is Japanese, Tokiko, off a Gixxer 1100 I think, all polished and rebuilt with stainless fasteners. Works very well. It originally had twin 6-pot calipers on the front, but it was very wooden, bit overbraked, so I swapped over to a single caliper and changed the master cylinder to match, and now it brakes fine, and it's a lot more feel to the lever, which is what counts. As you can see, the front wheel there is another Rix, built up split rim. The bolts, by the way, are titanium, which kind of explains why they're so damn expensive, and it's got a matching disc as well. Now, a lot of folks don't like the style of this bike. It's probably a bit too non-trad for them. If we look at the headlamp, that's from Austria. A lot of folks say it should have a traditional chromed round headlamp, blah blah blah, an all nice curvy tanks and so on, but I preferred it like this. It's a bit drag racer, it's a bit sort of radical, maybe not so much now, but when it was built in 2001, 2002, it was certainly pretty different. Paint job, it's by Piers Dowell. It's Ducati red, because I like that Ducati red, I like Ducatis, with a pearl flame job on it. You can see here, I'm not sure if the camera will pick up the details, but you can get a sort of idea of that there. And moving back, we've got a mural on the back, of course. Let's get that. And that's all airbrushed on by Piers Dowell, who's not sure he's one of the best in the world, but he's certainly one of the best in this country, that's for sure. As you can see, the bike is squeezed in my conservatory, not all the room here. The reason being that my garage is full up, so I've got 2 bikes in here for the time being, just waiting their turn to be worked on and whatever. Not much room, so this one's squashed against the wall. You can see here the exhaust system. It's stainless steel again with billet end caps. I designed that when we made it. 2-inch downpipes with 2 conical so-called baffles. There's not much baffling inside there. They're a little bit too loud, to be honest, but hey ho. And if I can just raise that a little bit, you can see, if I zoom in, we've got a Mikuni 42mm HSR carb. In front of it you've got speedo and some idiot lights bolted to the head. Not one of my best ideas, because the heat, despite the speedo being electronic, the heat transfers to the speedo into the oil and it just floats around, and it's pretty useless really. So that's a change I want to make for the future. Move that up onto the handlebars and also fit a combined tacho as well. At the time the engine was built, the Mikuni HSR 42 was the biggest carb that was available. These days you can go to 45 and 48. I did consider changing it, but big carbs tend to make the bike a little less amenable on the road, so I'll stick with the 42 for now. On the dyno, the bike makes 128 brake horsepower at the rear wheel and about 145 pound-feet of torque again at the rear wheel. And if you look on my YouTube channel, there'll be a couple of videos of the bike being run up on the dyno. As you can see, it's got a chain final drive. It didn't used to have. I had belt drive on there with a matching pulley to go with the expensive wheels, but having broken 2 belts, I swapped to chain. The belts broke always in the same way. When I'm going from first to second gear, full power, they snap. They weren't mistensioned, they weren't misaligned. I think it's just the power of the engine just breaks them. That's one change we've made over the years. Other changes are, I've already mentioned, the wheels have been changed. I've also got about 3 different seats to try and get a good looking one that still is reasonably comfortable, not that it really is. I changed the exhaust system. Originally it had a Vance & Hines, which didn't work well on the dyno, so in the end we made a new one. We could get more power still with a 2-to-1, but it's difficult to make it look good with a decent sized baffle, but that's something I might change again one day. The guys who built the bike, Breakthrough Services, did a good job on the electrics. They're all pretty much hidden above the oil tank, below the seat, and as you can see here, zoom in there, the ignition key and starter button are built into the oil tank, which is quite nice. There's also this strange little tube that is bolted to the top of the rear head, which confuses some people. It's not an oil tube, it's not a line. It's there to carry the wiring from the front of the bike into the main electrical centre, if you like, that's beneath the seat, so it hides it quite well. So that's quite a good idea. So overall then, the bike's been on the road since 2003. It cost a lot of money at the time. I think it had more money than sense, but hey, I spent it. Overall cost of this bike was around £25,000 back then. The biggest lump was the engine, which from Canada wholesale was £8,000. That's without the gearbox, that's without the primaries. The wheels were like £2,500, the frame was only about £2,000, I think. The build didn't cost that much because the guys who were building it were quite keen to build this thing for me, having already built one for me in the past. Was it worth it? Who knows? But these days I could build something similar for a lot less, because part prices have come down, I can do more myself, and probably there's some things on here that, you know, you don't really need £3,000 billet wheels. Some modern sports bike wheels would probably work quite well, but without that sort of specialness, without that bling. It's a great bike to ride. It's got no ground clearance, which is something I mentioned, which I want to do something about. But even though it's only got 128 brake, it's got a huge amount of torque. It makes, what, over 100 pound-feet of torque throughout the rev range. So it's got, you know, it moves when you open it up. It'll spin the tyre in first and second, and you've got to be careful on wet roads. It's great fun to ride for a short amount of time. It's not a touring bike. It's pretty damn uncomfortable. But I knew that it was built to go out on a sunny day, a few hours, make lots of noise, have some fun, bring it back home, polish it up, and put it away. In that time, I've done quite a few miles on it. It's gone through a few changes. Right now, it's not looking its best because it's sprayed in preservative to keep the damp out. I've not used it recently, so it's just sitting here and waiting for me to put my finger out and get it back on the road. Would I build it again? Yep, certainly would. It's always got a sort of sense of occasion when you go and ride it. Gets a lot of attention, which isn't always a good thing. You can't leave it anywhere. You can't, you know, you're worried about it getting stolen or messed about with. Kids like to jump on it and play on it and stuff like that. So you can't just sort of leave it in a car park and walk away. What else can we say about it? Owning one of these things isn't easy. The insurance is quite expensive. I need engines reports. Every year the insurance seems to get more expensive still. Things do go wrong with it. It's a one-off. Little things, little annoying things break. The vibration's quite bad. But overall, it's a kind of experience to ride. It's something that makes you want to go out on it on a sunny day. And having ridden pretty much every other Harley, you know, modern ones, older ones, they all seem a bit anemic, a bit flat compared to something like this. So I guess I've been spoiled. And that's my Merch 131 HO ground up custom bike. Cheers.